Welcome to the exploration of a topic that is deeply personal and profound. It's the mental health of Filipino people. My name is Kiko, and today I want to dive into the shadows cast by our shared history, a history that is shaped by centuries of colonial rule. If you grew up in a Filipino family, conversations about mental health were probably almost non-existent. Most likely, there was a prevailing silence, a reluctance to address emotions and vulnerabilities. This perspective is a product of our 333-year Spanish colonization in the 16th century. During these times, Filipinos succumbed to the colonial mentality, which includes feelings of inferiority, shame, and self-hate about being Filipino, as well as preferences for Western physical traits, discrimination against less Westernized Filipinos, and downplaying the historical and ongoing oppression of Filipinos as a necessary part of progress. Even Spanish evangelism plays a big part into this mentality. Often, our elders would dismiss our state of depression and assume it is linked to our lack of commitment to church. Furthermore, there is a Filipino saying, utang na loob, meaning a debt of one's inner self. This is the Filipino concept of an eternal debt to others, be it family or friends who do you a favor. These are the gears and cogs of colonial mentality that influence me to be unaware of my own mental well-being. I'm going to be conducting a series of interviews based on 3 discussion questions that I developed with input from family and friends, including 2 interviewees who work as mental health therapists. The interviews aim to explore the effects of colonial mentality and strategies to overcome its influence.
How do you think? Well, I'm going to start from the bottom and work up. How can this cycle be broken? I think as people, we need to stop describing the world in terms of race. You know that white girl, you know that black guy. Why is there only white and black, right? As a Filipino American, I was always praised for being mestiza. Mestizo is a mixed boy, and it's basically Filipino, Filipina, and white, or light-skinned. I feel like mestiza is another word that describes whiteness. And growing up, again, I was always praised for being light, and I never stopped to consider how that would affect other people and how that affected me. Now that I'm older, I can't help but wonder like what it feels like for brown-skinned people to feel like, to hear that this light person is getting called beautiful just because of their light skin. Am I not beautiful because I have brown skin or dark skin? And that's not true. And I believe that a big part of that is assimilation. I feel like as people that were colonized by the Spanish people, and as Filipino people came to America, we've always felt the need to fit in, assimilate. And although that's ugly and uncomfortable to try to understand and navigate, it's wrong. You're not beautiful or ugly because the way you look.
There are a lot of answers to that question, but I'll hit something that I feel would envelop all of, or would fall under the umbrella. It's pretty much, I see that concept as limiting beliefs. I feel like if you have that depth of gratitude ingrained in you, then you conform to what they want you to do, which kind of pulls you from being who you really are meant to be. So, case in point, I was not raised by my parents. I had my grandmother raising me. And all my life, I conform to what she wants me to be. I don't know if it's a remnants of her ego, unfulfilled, or just because she needs someone to take care of her in her old age. But I would always hear that, you should be this, utang na loob mo, ang buhay mo sa akin. But the thing now is, my question, or that's like something that I had to suffer until I moved here. And then I realized that questioning something that I know was supposed to be true, is it really true, allowed me to move the goalposts. So what I'm trying to say is, the moment I started asking her the question, just like in my head, like, okay, so say thank you for providing me life, nurturing me, but did you do it because you wanted another human being that would better the future? Was that, or was it because you didn't want to burn in hell for rejecting a child? So isn't that like more self-serving? So maybe siya yung may utang na loob sa akin because I actually saved her conscience from feeling bad because she neglected a child, kind of deal. So because of social media and all the talks and the awareness around this, these messages reaches the Philippines now. So case in point, my nephew was diagnosed with ADHD. Now my dad is starting to wonder if he had ADHD and just didn't know about it because we do not get our heads checked, right? So we have that Filipino machismo thing that we're all balanced and we're just like, we're hard workers, and we don't have anger management shit. That does not exist in our culture. So because of, again, the awareness that social media brings, now my dad is questioning that side. Is that something that he had to deal with in the rest? Or probably now he's backtracking. If I had the opportunity to get this checked out and addressed, maybe my life could have gone differently.
In terms of promoting discussions about mental health in Filipino families, that definitely is something that needs to be done, because in traditional families, seeking mental health support isn't necessarily something that is even an option, because, if there's anything wrong, they figured you got to figure out yourself, right? There's nothing wrong with you. You can do this, right? It's you should be able to do this. Otherwise, there's something majorly wrong with you. And so, other than that, being able to have more open discussions here in the United States, where if some people have been born here, some fil-am kids have been born here, they're more open to mental health. And if they are able to perhaps discuss that with their parents, talk about it more openly, talk about maybe their friends or even their own experiences, that will plant the seed in their parents' minds or people who are older than them, to be able to be more accepting that this is normal. And this is like, if you have a headache, you take medication, you see your doctor. Like, hey, if you have something going on inside of you, something emotional and something heavy, there's nothing wrong with also being able to contact a professional so that you can get some support. A lot of times parents will not participate in mental health support, but they will encourage their children to participate, and that's okay with them. And sometimes I think it's because the elders don't want to think that there's anything wrong with them, and it's like your problem, and so you seek mental health. But once again, it should be normalized.
What's up? I'm Anno. I just turned 28 yesterday, and I'm a board certified marriage and family therapist. Listen, what I will say though is that it takes a lot of energy to just plan your life to align with everyone else's life too. Like, it's ingrained almost to consider everyone else before you think of yourself, right? And so it's like, if I want to travel, I can't travel during Christmas, or I can't miss my mom's birthday. It's just ingrained. And so it takes a lot of extra energy for me to make time for the family before they even asked. And it feels a little unfair sometimes because I feel like I can't get out of it without them even guilting me into it. Because they will. But even before the fact, I'm already thinking ahead. And professionally, I would say that that is a sign of really unhealthy attachment, honestly. So kind of reflecting back, being of two second generation Filipino American born parents, they were kind of in the middle. They kind of mix it up. They're like, my dad was like, make sure you plan time for family, but also just let me know if you want to do what you want to do. But if I came home and I was living with my grandparents, who are first generation Filipino, they'd be like, where were you at? Why are you not considering my feelings? Are you out doing drugs? It's always like, what do we call it? It's like disaster scenario, worst case scenario all the time, disaster thinking. And I can go into so many reasons as to why they're acting like that. But, I could. Like, the immigration experience that I will never experience unless I get rich and move to Europe, does something to people, and it creates the survivor mentality, and they want to hold on to what they do have. And so if you grow up American where everyone's an individual and everyone's free, it's like a conflict of culture. If you're Filipino American, which is like, I don't know, I feel like I have to overcome that conversation every day of my life, basically, of like, how do I make my decisions? I have to bounce off these Filipino collectivistic values with my American individualistic goals. Filipinos, listen, this is to college students. Filipinos love being dominated, okay? Take it in every way you want. It is true. Like, there's a reason people think we're hospitable is because every time someone came over, we were like, yeah, come sit with us, Spanish people and Americans. Yes, give me your light-skinned babies or whatever, and it's toxic. And they only listen if you, like, overpower them, which is so weird, which is why they like light-skinned babies, whatever. And so that power dynamic that Filipinos are so drawn to, it makes them see their children as less than, or because they were colonized so many times, they have no sense of identity sometimes, or they are so traumatized, because that's some traumatizing ass shit. They block everything out, and so they have no emotional intimacy with their kids, which makes their kids not talk to them, which triggers their power dynamic, as in like, why aren't you talking to me? I'm your parent. And it's like, because you're a rude ass bitch. Like, what? I mean, like, whatever. And then I'm gonna be totally honest, sometimes when I'm out in the regular world, people are like, why are you so rude and why do you talk like that? And I'm like, oh, I wasn't raised any better. Okay, now break that. Oh my gosh, I can do this for like 10 minutes. Let's go macro to micro, okay? Macro, in a wider sense, I think even being Filipina in the mental health field is rare. Like, it's like, one, I went to therapy, and then two, I learned how to provide therapy. And so creating that representation, mind you, in a lot of circles, I'm the only Filipina in the room. And let me tell you, there's not that many Filipino clients that we get too. So representation is one on a macro level. And knowing that identity in every space that I walk through, it could be a burden. It could be heavy being the only person who looks like you in a space like that. And in a micro way, bringing that information to the table, I think this is kind of in the middle of bringing that perspective to my colleagues. I won't be upset if my colleague's like, I have a Filipino client. What do I do? I'm not going to take offense to that. I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, yes, finally. Wow. What got them into therapy? I'm so excited for you. Here's my perspective on that. overall, traditional Filipinos, first and second gen, they lack some awareness. They lack awareness of how their experiences or even their expression affects people, because they care too much. And Filipinos are hella emo. Because they care too much, they'll try not to care at all. Toxic, like what? That's an obvious red flag. And then that starts a vicious cycle. But the key is humility. The key is humility, because if you have humility, you'll be able to sit down and listen to someone share their experience. You'll be able to sit down and let someone, tell you, you'll be able to receive that you may have hurt someone, God forbid, that you did something wrong. And that's where relationships grow, and that's where cycles are broken, and that's where relationships are healed, are in those conversations. And if we're aware and we're humble and we're brave enough to sit down, we can break these cycles. And it's going to take a lot of work. Like, this is just the beginning.
So the path to healing begins with awareness. By understanding our history and acknowledging these deeply rooted influences, we can start to reclaim our identities and prioritize our mental well-being. It's about creating open conversations within our families, challenging social pressures, and embracing every part of who we are. So to my fellow Filipinos, know that our worth isn't defined by colonial ideals or the burdens of utang na loob. Together, we can create a future where our cultural heritage is celebrated and our mental health is cherished.